stepping stone.
Alright, looking at chapter 9, section 1, page 258. Our aim here in this section is to learn a little bit about how slaves were treated in ancient Rome, and that's the title of this subsection, Slavery in Rome. Well, almost all wealthy families owned slaves in ancient Rome. In fact, there were so many slaves in Rome at the height of the Roman Empire that almost a third of all of the people living on the Italian peninsula in 50 BC would be considered slaves. So, if we know that there were about 1 million people living in the city of Rome, that means we're talking about 300 to 400,000 slaves in the city of Rome. And if there were maybe 6 to 10 million people living on the entire peninsula, well, then that's 2 to 4 million people who are slaves on the Italian peninsula. That's just amazing. All those people who are not free. Now, there's two types of slaves. There's the household slave, and then there is the hard life slave. So the household slave, a lot of times those household slaves were treated really almost like a member of the family. They were treated very well. And that makes sense because, well, one of their main jobs was taking care of the children and making food. You want to keep those people fairly happy. Because if they're taking care of your kids for you and they don't like you, they can certainly get back at you pretty quickly if they kidnap your child, kill your child, or maybe even worse, teach your child to hate you. That's just horrible. And if they're the cook, the one who takes care of the food for the family, well, it's pretty easy to see that they can quite easily get to you, make you sick, kill you even, just from adding a little poison here or there. Those household slaves were treated like friends, and a lot of people became very, very close to their household slaves. Now, if we fast forward to early America, George Washington is well known for treating his personal slave, the guy who went with him everywhere, trusting him completely. In some cases, he was the only person that knew things besides George Washington. He was the only person that George Washington trusted, and this slave rode his horse right there with Washington when he went place to place. He rode in the carriage with him when he traveled. He was with Washington at the Continental Congress. He was with Washington at Valley Forge and at every battle. Well, when you spend that much time with somebody, you get to know them very well, and you have to trust them. So there's the one side, the household slave, the personal slave that people became very close to, and their lives were not horrible, usually. Then there's the other side of slavery. There's the slaves who had to work on a farm, those that worked in mines, worked on a ship, and those who were gladiators. Their lives were hard. Their lives were short. Often those types of slaves were the ones who were captured in battle, brought back. They had been good soldiers. They were strong men, and so they were expected to do the heavy labor. Having a slave on the farm was like having a tractor today. 10 men doing the same job as one tractor now. And so it's a lot of hard work. necessary there, and they ran them into the ground. You know, if your tractor blows a tire, you fix the tire. If your slave breaks a leg, you have to wait on it to heal, or they die, and you just get another slave. So their lives were very, very difficult, very, very hard, and they didn't have personal relationships with their owners. Now, gladiators were slightly different. You could think of them kind of like football players. That their jobs were difficult. They had to train a lot. They had to be well prepared. But instead of taking their chances getting injured, a gladiator would be taking his chance of dying in front of thousands upon thousands of people. And their deaths were cheered. That when one gladiator defeated another, the audience had some say in whether that loser survived. And ultimately, it was often the emperor's job to make that call, but it was usually looked to the people to hear what they wanted. If they were interested in seeing a death that day, well, then he would often oblige them. So gladiators could gain their freedom by winning enough, but kind of like a star athlete, you're well loved, it's amazing, but you screw up one time and your life gets pretty rough pretty quick. And that brings us to the end of section 1.